I'm a child of the 70s and 80s. So I promised myself that I would never, ever come back to the South once I left here. There was nothing about the South that was euphemistic for me at all. It was not at all. Not my education, not growing up here. It was just a different time period for me. I am a Marine soldier. Right after I finished basic training, I went straight to Schweinfurt, Germany. I was in 3rd ID and lived on Ledward Barracks. My first few years in the military, from 18 to about 22, I spent most of my time either in Grafenwehr, Hornsfeld, or the Coburg East German border. I love the military. There isn't anything about that point in time in my life that I would ever give away. It has made me the person I am and allowed me to inhale that piece of chicken while you all are still eating and able to get right now. So that's one of the traits that I still do. I still get up at around 5 o'clock in the morning, the same way I did when I was in the military. I don't think any of that has ever changed. I went from being in the military, being a 19 Delta and a 16 Tango, to going to Howard University. So I was a 28-year-old freshman in college. And then really not understanding exactly what I wanted to do with my life. I was transitioning after I'd been in the military, what most people consider the formative years of a young adult. I was almost 30 and had been in the military most of that time. I went to Howard University, I cooked all the time. I had my own brownstone, I was grown, and I was a freshman. So I was 28, everybody else was 18. For me, I was automatically charging people to come to the house to eat, you know? And that turned me into actually becoming, going to school for culinary school. From culinary school, you're talking about high stress. Every time somebody walks in the door to have a meal, guess what? That's a new deadline. And I was used to that from being in the military. Every day was something always I had to wake up, start off, didn't stop until it was over with. So I was used to that being inside the kitchen. My transition into actually heading back home towards the farm was in 2010. Well, for years prior, my grandmother, my aunt, my family, they would sit down and have these family meetings, and they would constantly talk about what should we do with all this land. And I used to say, y'all ought to go back to farming because that's what y'all used to do. It wasn't until 2010 that I decided to say, you know, Nana, I think we ought to go back to farming. And she said, really? And she reached underneath the table. Her, my aunt, and my mom had Jedi mind tricked me and gift-deeded my sister and I 28 acres and said, go ahead and farm it. So that's how I got our family land. Land's been our family since 1874. I'm the 6th generation to farm it. My children are now the 7th generation to actually plant those seeds. So right now it's definitely a labor of love. I would have never thought that this was where I was getting ready to go with my life either. So I went out to California to the Center for Agroecology and Sustainable Food Systems at UC Santa Cruz. I spent 6 months inside of a tent. Again, I was a soldier, so living in a tent was no big deal. So I lived outside for 6 months on a 25-acre certified organic farm there and worked for 6 months to understand and learn organic farming. Within that time period, this is 2011, play it forward to where we are now. We are, in our county, the only certified organic farm in Glenn County right now. We've never put chemicals on the property ever, and historically, most African Americans wouldn't have even been able to afford or be allowed to even purchase large amounts of chemicals anyway. So for us, it was just a no-brainer. A lot of what we have started right here in Georgia, and we're very proud of that. We also decided to not just grow the new hot stuff. We don't grow things like Chioka beets. We don't grow things that will not grow in our climate. So what do we grow? The watermelons that you saw up there are Georgia rattlesnake watermelons. They're part of the original watermelons that were here grown in this area. Our average weight of our watermelon last year was 28 pounds. That was the average weight of our watermelon. Look at these big pictures when we see all of the things that are going on and what the military is doing. When we look at transitioning, we never think about how do we protect home, because most soldiers come from rural America. They do not come from Detroit, Chicago, New York, LA. They don't come from big giant cities. Most soldiers come from small towns. And when I say a small town, I mean something under 1 million people, even, right? That's where most soldiers come from. So then if they come from that area, why can they not go back to those same areas? Well, sometimes like, I don't have a job. But there's plenty of land. Veterans are now written into the Farm Bill, physically written into it as part of NRCS, USDA monies that we can get to help us get started. We're written in there. So for that language to even be put in there, the Farmers Better Coalition and other organizations worked really hard to ensure that that could happen. So I'm partly here to say that it can be done, but like Thomas Edison said, most people walk away from hard work because it's covered in overalls. Most people walk away from hard work because it's covered in overalls. It's work, okay? So I'm not gonna tell anybody that my work is any different from anybody else. However, I'm still in a uniform, okay? When I go to meetings like this is my uniform. When I'm out on the farm, I have on overalls. When I walk into my kitchen, I have on a chef coat. Everybody has a uniform. When people get out of the military, a lot of times the first thing they try to transition away from is, oh man, I'm glad I got that uniform off. Guaranteed, no matter where you go, there's gonna be a uniform you're gonna have to put on. But what happens is people don't tell you that. And one out of seven jobs in this state is built around agriculture. 1 out of 7? If we count how many people in this room, that means every 7th person in this room is involved in agriculture. That would be a lot of farmers just in this room right here if we thought about it from that standpoint. 1 out of 7. We're no longer the peach state. We produce more blueberries than anything else. So we have a lot of things. Not everybody's doing row crops. Not everybody's doing corn. Not everybody's doing cotton. Not everybody's doing soybean. Not everybody's doing peanuts. Not everybody's doing onions. There are a lot of small things that we can do. We have more farmers markets popping up more than ever before. So this is a very viable way for us to go.